Namaskar. Dear learners, welcome to the lecture on ethics of print and broadcast journalism. The world in the 21st century is primarily driven by the liberal democracies. These nations give individual rights to its citizens, nurture democratic values, and have the government accountable to the people. A free press is one of the basic needs in the liberal democracies, where it is not only keeps the government in check but also acts as the fourth pillar of democracy. The notion of the free press is prevalent in every democracy of the world. Most countries like in India, the constitution do not have separate laws or regulations to govern the media. Instead, it is given the freedom to all the citizens under the fundamental right to freedom and expression. Therefore, media is largely guided through self-regulation, and ethics plays an important role to decide between good and bad. What is ethics? Ethics is a branch of philosophy that was developed by Greek philosophers, including Aristotle and Epictetus. It is concerned with the nature of goodness and differentiates between good and bad. Ethics is a journey towards righteousness. It guides us to take the right means to an end. In media, ethics are involved in daily affairs like it is right or wrong to broadcast or publish certain news. It is right or wrong to make confidential news public. Should the news items be judged by the pleasure it stimulates in the masses? Media ethics, in simple terms, means the best way to report is causing minimum harm. It is the moral judgment to decide between good and bad. It is derived from the Greek word ethos, which means custom, usage, or character. It could be defined as the rational process applying established principle between two moral obligations collide. Ethics involves balancing competing rights when there is no correct answer. Ethics in print and broadcast journalism differs in context. A journalist has always to take tough decisions regarding multiple factors in his profession. Journalism is reporting facts, and facts are reported at their cost. Sometimes news has an intrusion in privacy, confidentiality, and right to remain anonymous. Therefore, there is always a contest between privacy and public interest. As we have understood that ethics or ethical moral values which guides the ethics, and it does not have a fixed definition. It is pertinent to mention why journalism is guided by ethics and not by rules. Rules, as it is understood, are stringent, clearly defined, and need to be obeyed. Rules could be good for professions other than journalism, but in journalism, law or rules play a negative role in suppressing media freedom. Courts, as Andrew Bellese and Ruth Chadwick argues, that cannot anticipate every situation. It is a journalist who face difficult ethical dilemmas and have to make the moral choices. Now let's look into the definition of ethical journalism. Ethical journalism would be defined as the right thing to do at the right point of time. It is a reasoning behind human actions and morals. Ethical journalism means doing right over wrong when there is a moral dilemma. When we talk about ethical journalism, there are two approaches to understand the issues: duty based ethics and consequentialistic ethics. If a journalist focuses on whether the content of the news is true and the news could be authenticated, then the approach could be termed as duty based ethics. In this case, the nature of the news is given importance. Jonathan Glover suggests that, unlike code, ethics could not be handed down by authority. Ethics need to be discovered through the ingenious interplay of human reason and human experience, a process which, while producing results of great value in both science and ethics, is both fallible and endless. Whereas, if the journalists take into account the questions: what impact will news has? How will it impact the subject? Whether the news would be more harmful than useful in the long term? Then approach could be termed as consequentialistic ethics. In both these approaches, the commitment of journalists is towards objectivity and professionalism. The job of a journalist is commonly understood as finding out the facts and presenting them before the masses. It goes beyond this basic job into a realm where the journalist understands the gravity of the news, the implications in the long run, and possible controversies that are likely to emerge. It is here that ethical journalism comes into play. True public service, they argue, requires journalists to report the news as explosive, discomforting, or controversial as it may be, and let the chips fall where they may. The public must decide how the information will be utilized. These ethicists insist that journalists should resist paternalistic impulses and pressure to sanitize the news. Despite this general tendency, many journalist ethics codes and standards also include explicitly utilitarian concerns. That means a recognition that journalists must, of course, be mindful of the consequences of their work, particularly when it comes to potentially harmful effects of some information. The tensions created by these two approaches often constitutes the heart of many journalism. Ethics controversies just as they do in other areas of applied ethics.